That's my intro, Mawande. Don't look mad. Anyways, hello guys, welcome back to Journey to Self with none other than Ufanele Nduli. Here's to another episode. Thank you for taking the time, selecting this channel, selecting this episode. I hope it will be insightful. I hope it will be enriching, and also let's just have a conversation. So the focus of this particular episode is basically outlining the start of the kind of work that I did. A young disclaimer, Bagiti, I'm not a psychologist. I am not a therapist. I am just sharing experiences or things that I've done that I feel like have helped me. And so ungabusu tatalento as if like this is the blueprint of how you should navigate your journey. Some people are gonna need a therapist, maybe church counsel. Disclaimer, ne? Ungathi uthi ufanele wathi angenze kanje ngizothola lokhu. As I said, journey to self is unique to each person. I'm just sharing what works for me. Cool. So I was in pursuit of obviously figuring myself out. And one of the very few things that I started with was I called them reflective questions. So I literally went on Pinterest, typed reflective questions, and there are so many. Some focus on relationships, some focus on career. It's a very holistic variety of questions that you can download. So after I downloaded all of them, I broke them down to maybe answering 5 a day, depending on how busy I was. But also, I wasn't that busy because it was COVID time, so I had a lot of time. So I tried to formulate a routine that would help me isolate time to meet myself in my truth. So the reflective questions would range from maybe focusing on your inner child. So inner child work basically looks like you looking back at the past or when you were a younger child and looking at how life was and how those certain experiences have affected you going forward. So for me, for example, my ideal would have had a two parent household. You know, I've got a presence of a father, you know, and that wasn't my ideal. So the reflections help you to literally reflect on what your reality was, what you wanted your ideal to be, and maybe you mourn that, and then you let it go, and then you start reshaping your life going forward with the acceptance of things that you maybe would have wanted and weren't able to get. So, in reflecting and unpacking those questions, what I wanted to highlight for every session that I had was that I need to answer truthfully. If I literally did not have an answer, or I felt like I'm going to give a generic answer just for the sake of answering and getting through, if the target was 5, just getting through the target, I would literally be like, I'm going to come back to this one. Because when you're fighting to not put on a facade in your life anymore, you also don't want to approach izinto just ungibathise ukuthi sengikwenzile u-5 just for the sake of. In order for this process to really be fruitful, kumele nje uhlale uyibheke mabethi, what role did you play on this not working out? Ungathi hayi mina nje ngilungile ngangiyi-victim. Journey to self removes the whole victim mentality in the sense that you're not supposed to look at yourself with, oh, imagine now I'm superior or blame other people. You are literally like, okay, this was the reality. Okay, this is what Usman Bani did. This is what Usman Bani did. This is how it affected me. But when you take accountability of how you want to move forward, you are also like, hey, Nami, God, maybe I could have spoken up. Maybe I could have done this differently. It's not a blame game. Basically, it's you sitting down and analyzing, okay, I can, here, or I'm keeping this where I did something and I'm discarding the rest. So I did those reflective questions. And after doing that, I would also have a journaling session where whatever insecurity might have popped up that I didn't even know I had, I go and unpack it in the journaling. what's also important with journaling is going back to read what you wrote. Because once the pen starts, it will bleed on that page. And when you go back and read, you are able to then pick up patterns, you're able then to pick up behaviors about yourself and how you, let's say, respond to certain circumstances, to certain situations, or to certain people according to whatever relationship dynamic you're in. And then you're able to be like, oh, okay, there's a pattern here. Can I fix it? Do I want to fix it? Does this person still work for me? Etc. Etc. So that was a very private. It only required my thinking and my unpacking and working towards getting to the root cause of why certain things felt a certain way and why I would behave a certain way. Then I also came to the realization that when you unpack certain layers about yourself, prune certain findings, and letting go and rebranding and just journeying to yourself, you constantly have to introduce yourself to yourself because khona ezinye izinto that you thought were just you, but they were just rooted in an experience dala that helped you develop that certain pattern. And now when you remove that behavior or you remove that pattern, you kind of have to say, hey, finally, version one, nangu version two. You know, so it's a constant re-evaluating of what works, what doesn't work, and what I'm taking, what I'm leaving. Then I also realized, which just as much as I am reviewing myself and unpacking little different layers, I have to do the same with the immediate people that will be affected with the changes that are happening within that eventually translate to whoever I'm interacting with. And those immediate people are obviously my family and my friends. Because if I used to say yes to you out of wanting to please you, and now I'm working on my people pleasing, my yes is not going to come out as easy as it used to be. I'm going to have to now start exercising no. And then I also need to introduce that boundary to you. And what's important about journey to self, Guti, when you start reintroducing yourself into spaces that were used to you in a different way, some might be accepting, but some might just be like, and then manje, what's juicing gami, you know, this you especially when you're a people pleaser, when you start being like ka and time ka, onje ka is just your final, there's no explanation coming. And also it was shocking to me that I didn't need to explain because I would always be like, yes, car, got ingoba, because I had to justify me saying no because to me saying no was ungodly and yeah, I needed to show up for people. But my problem was I was saying yes to situations that I should have said no to. And the only reason I was saying yes is because maybe of shame. And sometimes it was, I'd rather make myself uncomfortable, but you need to be comfortable. So I was always like sacrificing myself. So Ama reflective questions also assist you in understanding why you behave in a certain manner, you know, and why you even question your yes, you also question your no, because as much as you can withdraw your yeses, sometimes you shouldn't extend a no because Tampe, you are also dealing with the root of fear, and fear is making you say no. Like, for example, I may have ended up never starting this podcast because I could have said no to something purely because it's out of fear and self doubt, not because um, I wasn't capable, but because I had already had imposter syndrome in different spaces. It could have infiltrated to this space as well, where I'm like, I'm not even gonna try. I'm just gonna reject myself before the space even rejects me. Right. So in incorporating the new layers of me and reintroducing myself to my family and my friends, specifically for my family, I didn't exercise. The exercise basically required me to write a letter to each family member because anybody who knew me in high school knew I always called myself the queen of sarcasm. I wasn't trying to feel anything. I was really numb. So the work of self reflective questions also helps you. Well, for me specifically, because I was iced up and didn't allow myself to feel, I started melting away. I started having to acknowledge that I must feel all my feelings and it's okay to feel all my feelings. And for someone who never used to really cry, I just started crying at the slightest inconvenience. So that was so that was also very new to me. And I just went on in a space where I was just like, I'm gonna feel everything and I'm gonna express my love. Because also I don't really come from the most affectionate family, but I mean, I wanted to hear and I love you here and there, you know? So the rules of the personalized letters that I wrote. One, you're doing this for your outlet. They're not compelled to respond to the letter, and you mustn't take offense if maybe it sparks a certain reaction from them. But you needed an outlet because you had withholded so many emotions. So I wrote letters to my mom, to my brother, to my sister, to my aunt, to my uncle, to my cousins. And each one of them ended with an I love you. That was a complete that was a complete out of body experience. This is a family. If I'm fetching my brother at the airport, I'm just like, oh yeah, Sophie, okay, sure. Not oh hi, where have you? No. To me, writing personal letters and saying, I love you. Ooh, child. And willing pale, put it in an envelope and just tuck it away. And let's say if I'm visiting my mom, put it under her pillow, visiting mom cool, put it under her pillow. Well, whichever gap I found, I just tossed the letter in, and then I think my brother also was in town at that time, and I snuck it in his bag, and I think he found it when he was back in Cape Town. But doing these exercises, yes, it's uncomfortable, but like once you've released it, you're just like, I'm not in control of how the person is gonna respond or receive it, but I'm very much in control on how I want to articulate and express myself. And it's solely for me. So um, doing the work had me crying a lot. It had me um, embracing imperfection because in my head, I could do no wrong. In my head, for so long as I was going to church and keeping to the rules, you can't tell me anything. I'm gonna be the first one to make it to heaven, you know. But I realized with all those things, just because my mom was a person of church, I was people pleasing through that as well. To a point where I had to come to a space where I was like, you don't even know God for yourself. You know the God that has been expressed to you through church and maybe slight indoctrination or habits, you know, but it wasn't a personal encounter. And just thinking about it now, that was also a time where I decided to leave church. Like I was the Sunday girl, I was the youth girl, I was the home cell, everything, you know. But I realized that as much as I didn't know myself, it also translated to not knowing God. And also, not knowing God for myself was also rooted from my daddy issues. Like, you gonna tell me about some imaginary God that I have never met when my biological dad, Naye, um, didn't stick around to get to know me, you know? So I had to mourn that part of me that thought they knew God and then isolate time to figure out who God is to Fanele. So there was a lot of ufanele that I thought existed. Then when you do the work, you're just like, this was actually, this was actually imposed on you. This was actually just you following the crowd. This was just habitual because your family did this. This was just habitual because your friends did this. So it was the biggest shock. And for someone who navigated life thinking they're a God-fearing person to finally realize, awumazi kahle kahle, you know? So it really is a journey of constantly like, oh, okay, I've made a milestone. And then you take 5 steps back. And then you make a milestone. And then you take 10 steps forward. So it's literally a tug of war of who gets to win that day and who gets to lose that day. But and sometimes you may look back and be like, oh, this is not helping. All I'm doing is crying. All I'm doing is just unpacking stuff. Where are the results? It is really a journey that unfolds itself in its own beautiful way that sneaks up on you because you get just so lost in I'm no longer being driven by excuses. I'm just pushing forward and making sure that I am doing the work so that I can show up in my truth, you know. So yeah, in short, guys, there's no avoiding the work, especially if you want to walk in truth, if you want to walk in vulnerability, if you want to walk in accountability. You really just have to do the work, and sometimes you might need a pause because uh, it can get really draining, but I would definitely encourage everybody to start looking at their roots, start looking at their wounds, to see ukuthi kahle kahle, what do I need to do to make sure that I am walking in God's reflection. Oh yes, before I forget, the card of the day. Let's see. Today's question is, when was the last time you felt brave? What were you doing that made you feel that way? I leave that to you. So yeah, that is that on doing the work. I hope if therapy is how you want to navigate, if church counsel is how you want to navigate, do that. But all I'm saying is start. You truly, truly owe it to yourself. Toodles! Remember to share, comment, engage, ask questions because it's a community, Moss. We are all in this together. Cheerio!